Hey everyone. So first, I just want to say a huge thank you to any new subscribers that I've gotten recently, really in the last like 3 to 6 months, because I kind of get new subscribers rarely enough that I like to do collective thank yous instead of like, thanking people once a week or something. But thank you so much to anyone who's come over to my channel in the last couple of months. Recently, I got an influx of emails saying I had a bunch of new subscribers, and I was really excited about it. And anytime that happens, I'm like, Katie had something to do with this. And sure enough, I checked, and Katie from Books and Things did a video the other day, I think on Sunday, doing a small booktuber Sunday video, and it was her second one. And in this particular installment, my channel was one of the channels that she recommended. So Katie, thank you so much. I really appreciate it. And to my subscribers who came over because of that, thank you for trusting in Katie's taste enough to come check out my channel. And for anyone who just randomly found my channel, thank you so much for wanting to stay. So I hope you all enjoy my content. Okay, so first we're going to have my February wrap-up, and I think this is going to be in two parts because I have been so excited about the books that I read in February that I've gone on about them a bit, enough to the point where I think I have to make it 2 videos. So yes, hopefully that'll work. Okay, so February was weird for me. I didn't really feel like reading anything for the first 2 weeks, which is odd. I don't really know why. I'm wondering if the mood that I realized I was in around Valentine's Day for reading was actually the mood that I was in the whole time, and that's why I was having trouble. But basically on Valentine's Day, I realized that I was in a very romancy reading mood, so like I really just wanted to read like romantic things. And so for the first 2 weeks, I'm not sure if that was the mood I was in the whole time, and I was trying to force myself to read other things that weren't in the romance genre, so that's why I wasn't really reading much, or if it was that it like took Valentine's Day for me to actually get into a reading mood, which was like the romancy stuff. So either way, like that's why I didn't read much for the first 2 weeks. And I did actually make a video earlier in the month saying that I was really excited to do a Harry Potter reading-a-thon of the first 3 illustrated editions. And I was also going to make a whole bunch of Harry Potter food, and I was going to, have that for a few days while I read the books. And the food thing actually ended up happening, and I had a lot of fun doing that. But because my reading mood changed, I ended up eating all this Harry Potter themed food while I was actually reading romance stuff instead of Harry Potter. But I still definitely want to do that. I'm just probably going to do it in April or May, because this month in March I have a bunch of other things that I really want to read. So, yeah, but anyway, so on Valentine's Day, I started The Convenient Marriage by Georgette Hare, and Georgette Hare is an author who I've wanted to read for quite a while. There are a couple booktubers whose opinions I very much trust, who really like Georgette Hare, and specifically I was talking to Jerome Weiselberry. Jerome, please let me know if I'm saying that right. If you watch this video, please let me know, because I know it's your pseudonym, but I never know with the last name if I'm actually saying it correctly. Like I never know if it's Weiselberry or Weiselberry. But anyway, so I was talking to her about this several months ago now, and I said, you know so much about Georgette Hare and you've read so many of her works. Do you think that if I start with the audiobooks, that will take away from my enjoyment, because I know that they are abridged? And she listened to the audiobooks as well as reading the physical copy, not at the same time. And she said that she didn't think the adapter of the audiobooks took out anything super important, so that it was okay for me to start there. So, I was like, okay, that's good enough for me. And it took me another 3 to 4 months to actually start the audiobook. But the reason why I was so interested in starting with the audiobooks is because 3 of them are narrated by the wonderful Richard Armitage, who is my favorite actor who also narrates. And I also have favorite narrators who are not actors, Simon Vance being the main one. But yeah, so I really love Richard Armitage as both an actor and a narrator, so I really wanted to listen to these. And so I finally started Convenient Marriage, and I have no idea what took me so long to start these. Oh my gosh, I loved this so much. Like, this was one of the greatest audiobook experiences. And the funny thing is, I've said that about several other Richard Armitage narrated works, and I think it's just because I love his voice so much. But for this one, oh my gosh, like, her writing, I love it so much. Like, okay, well, I should give you a little bit of an intro to this first, I guess. Georgette Hare is, or was, really well known for her Regency romances, as well as her mysteries, and she also did a handful of historical novels that weren't, didn't have romance as a subgenre. And I think were not set in the Regency period, but I could be wrong about the Regency part. And she wrote, I don't want to give her exact years because I'm going to get those wrong, especially because I feel like I get her dates mixed up with Agatha Christie's a lot. They could be the same, I don't know. But I know that for Convenient Marriage, she wrote that in the mid-30s, and I think Sylvester and Venetia were probably like the 30s or the 40s as well, but I'm not totally positive. And those were the 3 that I read. And for Convenient Marriage, this plot was, it's about a girl named Horatia Winwood who, she is the youngest of 4 siblings, I think, and her family is very socially well off. Her older brother is actually a viscount, so socially they're golden. Monetarily, not so much, because the older brother, who is a viscount, also has a bit of a gambling problem, so he's pretty much gambled away their family fortune. And so basically the family is relying on the oldest daughter, Elizabeth, who I want to say, like, Horatia is like 17, so I want to say Elizabeth's probably in her like early 20s, maybe. So they're relying on her to make a good marriage to someone with money, basically, to save the family from being super poor all the time. And so she has actually been courted by this guy named Lord Rule, who is a lord and is also very well off financially. And Lord Rule is pretty much only marrying Elizabeth, courting and marrying Elizabeth to marry into this family because, as I said before, they are very socially well off and socially respected in society. However, Elizabeth actually is only doing this for duty reasons. She is very much in love with a lieutenant who, or lieutenant, whichever, who is actually, he was a very close family friend, and sadly, he is very, very poor. But they are very much in love, so it's kind of a duty versus your heart kind of thing, which is really unfortunate and sad. And Horatia sees that this is pretty much tearing her sister apart before the marriage. So she ends up going to Lord Rule and says, hey, would you marry me instead? And he's like, sure, why not? He takes a little bit of convincing, but yeah, so that they end up getting married. And it's interesting because it's one of those things where you kind of know immediately from when that happens where it's going to be going, because of course it starts out as a marriage of convenience, so that kind of, with those types of starter plot lines, you always know kind of where it's going to end up. But what I love so much about this book is the shenanigans that happen along the way, like how it gets from Marriage of Convenience to Love Match at the end. Like, oh my gosh, it's so, so good. And as I said, the shenanigans are just fantastic. Georgette Hare's sense of humor that she threads throughout the story is amazing. And I really love the two leads of Horatia and Lord Roll, and I love them individually as well as their relationship together. And I like so many of Lord Roll's friends, and this was just such a good story. Oh my gosh. And specifically what I love about the narration of this story is, and really about all of these, is I love Richard Armitage's ability to do such distinct voices, and really I don't know why I should ever be surprised with actor narrators about this. Like, it really shouldn't come as a surprise to me, but his talent for doing such distinctive voices is amazing. I've had the problem with some audiobooks before, and okay, disclaimer, this does generally happen with audiobook narrators who it's only, like, they've only done it a handful of times before or whatever, and they're not actors by profession, but some narrators, like, are so indistinctive with their voices that, you know, all of the female characters sound the same, all of the male characters sound the same, to the point where you get kind of confused as to who is speaking. But with the way that Richard Armitage narrates, you know, you can have 3 women and 3 men in a room together in a scene, and even if it didn't say, like, Mrs. So-and-so said this, Mr. So-and-so said this, you would be able to distinguish which of the women is speaking or which of the men is speaking by how distinctive his voice is for the individual characters. And of course, how he does this is, you know, based on the character's personality as well as kind of their role in the story. The perfect example is there is a character in Convenient Marriage, I'm not going to say who is a complete weasel. And literally that is the only way that I know how to describe this character. And his voice for this character completely matches that. Like, you're just like, oh my gosh, how do you do that? Like, you have actually made him sound like the human version of a weasel. So it's perfect. It was wonderful. It was awesome. Okay, I'm at the 13-minute mark, and I've only talked about one book, and I'm really sorry. I'm going to talk much faster in part 2. But I also, like, you know, I wanted to thank everyone for being new subscribers, and I also wanted to kind of introduce Georgette Hare and kind of how I came to her works and everything. So I will talk about the other 2 Georgette Hare books that I listened to, as well as the 3 other books that I read in 4 other books that I read in the next video. And I promise I'll talk faster so it's not as long and I'm not talking for 10 minutes about one book. But anyway, thank you so much for watching, and stay tuned for part 2.